Hi folks, welcome to another episode of My Life with Robert Burns. Jim Thompson and Douglas Mackenzie here again to talk to another of our cronies from around the Burns world. How are you doing today, Jim?
Doing absolutely great, Douglas. Terrible weekend with that weather and Burn suppers cancelled and stuff, but can't be helped.
There you go. It's an ill wind.
It was one.
Anyway, folks, tonight's guest is an author, a storyteller, a songwriter, a singer, a poet. You name it. Many talents. And even Jim, she's a podcaster, so no pressure there.
Oh, I think we're on board, Douglas.
So cronies everywhere. Please welcome Susi Briggs. Hi, Susi.
Hiya there.
How you doing?
I'm absolutely fine. I'm tickety-boo.
Good. Glad to hear it. Well, we always start with the same question. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, please, Susi?
Well, I would call myself a freelance creative, and that kind of covers a lot. But like you say, I do a lot of different things, mostly in Scots language. So I'm a poet, I'm a storyteller, I'm a musician, and I'm an author of children's books in Scots language as well. And I am currently writing a play for Wayne's with Brockland Theatre. And I have a podcast with Alan McClure, and it's called Our Wee Podcast, and it's family friendly. It's all in Scots language.
Excellent. So where did it all start? Where did Susi arrive from?
Well, I grew up in Dumfries, which is like Burns country, you know, between Ayr and Dumfries.
Yeah.
I grew up in a council estate called Lochside, and then moved to Lincluden, just over the road. And I moved out to the Galloway end of the region when I was about 17, and I've been here ever since. So I bide in Gatehouse of Fleet now.
Uh-huh.
But our headmaster, our dominie, was a lovely man called Mr. Ogilvie, Wilson Ogilvie, and he was a former Burns World Federation president. And he was the president during his time with us. And he embedded a love for all things Scots language and Scots identity through his love of Burns. And
I think we both met Wilson in the past. In fact, if I remember rightly, he used to ask the questions at the Newcomer at Burns Club quiz.
And his voice was, he had a brevity to his voice. It was very iconic. And when he came to my book launch with the first book, Nip Nebs, I managed to get a hold of him and invite him along because he's mentioned in the foreword. When he came along and he came into Waterstones, he said, "Susi Briggs, I am so very proud of you." And my wee heart just went, "Oh!" I'm suddenly a wee lassie again.
Oh, fantastic. So was it school in Gatehouse of Fleet, and then what did you do after school?
Well, it was school in Dumfries, so it was Lochside and including primary school I went to, and then Dumfries High School.
Right.
And then when I left school, I moved out this way. So.
And did you start working as a creative immediately you left school?
No. I'm going back now. I was always creative, but I had jobs, like I worked as a carer for a while with people with dementia and other complex needs. So I was a carer for a long time, and I learnt a lot. It was very enriching being a carer. Not so much financially, but certainly in terms of experience about life and, understanding people and human nature and that kind of thing. And I was working in a chemist for a wee while as well. But the whole time in and around it, I was always being creative.
Uh-huh.
I would write poetry and I would write songs, and I would get involved with the local music festival and things like that.
Uh-huh.
So there was always a creativity around. And even when I worked in the chemist, I was always thinking of ways to make the job more interesting and getting folk dressing up for charity days and things like that. I even worked with Bruce Forsyth once and did play a card right for charity.
Oh, very good. So when did it become your career?
In about 2013, I decided that's it. I'm going to try. I'm going to try my hand at being self-employed, freelance, and I created a thing called Music Matters in care homes because I missed care work, but also physically and mentally, it was very wearing. But I still wanted that connection. And during my time as a carer, I could see that there was something in music that would create a bridge of connection, especially with people with dementia. It was a way of connecting with people and getting them to connect with each other. And I could see that working when I was a carer. So that my first thing I did for work as a freelance was I created Music Matters, which was interactive and inclusive music sessions for people. And I would go into the care homes and I would, at first, I mean, I didn't drive, so I would just take a big sort of granny trolley with a CD player in it, stacks of CDs, musical percussion instruments, drag them around to different care homes, do an hour session with the people there. And I would go every fortnight. So I got to ken what people's preferences were and what made them sparkle. And I was always looking for that thing because sometimes I wasn't being able to, they weren't able to tell me what they liked. But then something would happen, something would be played, and I could see them sparkle, and I'd be like, oh, they like Elvis, they like, Danny Kaye, whatever. So it was like a mobile party, but with the booze. And I would dance and I would sing and stuff. But during COVID, that all stopped. And that was
Uh-huh.
a real wrench for me. But I did that very successfully for a good 7 or 8 years
Uh-huh.
before it stopped.
Yeah. It always
Um,
amazes me that people with dementia and have had family in that situation and friends in that situation, how important music is to them.
Aye, it really is important. And a lot of my poetry, there's a few poems that I had written from my experiences with that. There was a lovely, lovely man that was called Peter, but I knew quite a few Peters. So to me, he was my blue-eyed Peter, and he liked that. He liked being called him my blue-eyed Peter. He loved that.
Uh-huh.
And when he was well, we were able to dance and ballroom dance together. Not that I was very good, but he was amazing. But as time wore on, his mobility became less and less. But what I would do is I'd wear a flippy dress, and we would play his favourite song, which was Deep Purple by Artie Shaw,
Right.
song band. It's Artie Shaw. But he would play that, and he'd be sitting in his chair, and he'd do a certain action with his hand, like to motion for me to
Uh-huh.
twirl, and I would twirl for him, and then
Yeah.
I'd go back and hold his hands. And that was our thing. And there was one time I actually filmed this, and it's on my Music Matters page on Facebook. I played the song for him, and he came to life, and he put his arms up in the air as if he was bringing someone he loved in for an embrace.
Oh, oh,
And it moved me to tears. And I felt like he was reaching out for his wife, who had
yeah,
already passed on,
yeah,
and was bringing her in, and the
yeah,
joy in his face and the love was just so palpable. And I went home and I wrote a poem called "The Hertz Sang." Would you like to
yeah.
hear that?
Oh, lovely. Yeah, of course.
I'd like to do that. And I wrote it a couple of weeks before he passed on, and I was able to read it to him a couple of
Uh-huh.
times at the last session I was with him. and he wasn't able to tell me how he felt, but the way he held my hand told me that
Yeah, it meant something to him.
it meant something to him. So this is for Blue-Eyed Peter. The heart sang. Sing, then unlock my heart's kist. It is fu wi' skinkling treasure. Burl wi' me in the skirling rainbows while we let the licht shine in. Watch as my love wanders back to me, where I gather her in my arms in the mists of these memories. Your sang is the brig, your heart's love is eternal.
That's beautiful.
Oh, very moving. Very
Perhaps probably don't come over on Zoom, but can assure I really enjoyed that.
Thank you.
Now I've got a friend who was a great Burnsian, and he couldn't remember what he did 5 minutes ago, but he can sit at the piano and play Burns songs without music, and I
That's
just think it's
beautiful.
absolutely amazing. So it's fantastic. No, it's a great thing for you to do that. Tremendous. Anyway,
Yeah.
tell us about the books.
The books. So in about 2011, well, actually further back from that, about 2007, one of my dear friends passed away, and the day of his funeral, my son was being babysat by his granny. Well, all the Waynes were being babysat with granny and granddad when we were at the funeral. And when I came back, my son was in bed, but he was still awake, and he was clutching a wee teddy, a wee sheep, with his eyes closed, a wee sleeping sheep. And he's like, "Mom, please tell me a story." And my heart was saying, I was like, "Oh, son, I didn't want to tell you a story. I'm awfully sad tonight. Just, well, I'll tell you one tomorrow. Just cuddle down and get to sleep." "No, Mum," and he was going to have a tantrum, and I thought, oh, I'll just dig deep and find the story for him rather than have to deal with a tantrum. So I looked at the wee sheep in his arms, and I made up a story on the spot I called it The Wee Sleepy Sheepy, and it started with, "Once upon a time, there was a wee sleepy sheepy who was very, very tired." And it goes on about him going to find a nap, somewhere nice to have a nap in the story. And by the time I got to the end of the story, I realised it was actually about my friend who loved to have naps under trees and anywhere he could go, really. He would just love to just go there. And I thought, I need to get this published for him, for my friend, in memory of my friend. So I'd only ever written it in English, apart from the title, The Wee Sleepy Sheepy. The word "wee" was the only Scots word in it. And I sent it away and it never had any feedback or anything until I got a letter from a publisher who said, "We will publish your story if you omit the Scottish flavour." And I was raging. Flavour? It's not a pot noodle seasoning. That's my language. That's why. Wait a minute. Where are the books with Scots words in it for Waynes? Where are the original stories? There was plenty of translations from Ichiku, which is great. Where were the original picture books with Scots in it? So I decided that was going to be my mission. And I was told by industry experts, oh, it's couthy, it's nice, you'll never get it done. And that's where I relate to Burns, because Burns was told to anglify his poetry for to be more palatable and more marketable, but he dug his heels in. And I think that's where there's a connection for me with Burns. I'm nowhere on the level of Burns, but that thread was very strong. And so out of sheer spite and tenacity, I taught myself my own Scots literacy. Can I say it right? I taught myself my own Scots literacy, just like every Scottish writer that writes in Scots today. because we're only ever taught to read and write in English.
Yeah.
That's all we're literate in,
Yeah.
from very, very little. So I had a little dictionary I was working with and translating all the other English stories I'd written into Scots. And in that process, I discovered these beautiful words for frost and ice that were like jewels in my mouth. And I wrote something that was brand new. And I wrote nip nibs when my friend Ruthie Redden, she illustrated the book, and she did that out of the kindness of her heart. She did that in her own time, unpaid, and just because she wanted to bring those words to life in another art form. And as she was doing it, she said, "This is a book, Susie. I think this is a book." And so she did 10 beautiful illustrations for the book. And we were told by industry experts we wouldn't get it published, we'd have to do it ourselves. And they were wrong, because in 2017 we got an offer we couldn't refuse after displaying the illustrations at an exhibition. The rest is history. So I've had
Very
3
good.
other books published since then. So they that tell you can't, well, you can. You just have to hope and know, and the magic stuff happens in the middle.
Well, I met you for the first time with my wife in Cumnock when we were at the Scots Language Awards.
Oh, right, yeah.
And I've been a big advocate for the Scots language, even though I'm not a natural Scots language speaker. I came to Scotland when I was a 7-year-old with an English mum who said I shouldn't speak like that. So,
Right.
So it's never come naturally to me. But one of the things we found, and Jim was involved in this as well, we used to run a poetry festival in Muirkirk, and Muirkirk kids speak Scots in school, and some of the teachers approved of it, some of them didn't. Has it become more acceptable in schools now?
It has been more acceptable. I've seen a massive change even from when we first started to try and get this out there in sort of 2011. I mean, it took 6 years to get Nip Nibs actually published. But me and Ruthie would sometimes visit local schools, and there was always support for it. But further down the line, there's even more support. The Open University have a programme of education for teachers to tap into, to encourage them and embolden them to drop Scots in their lessons, and to allow them to embrace Scots-speaking Wanes, like help them to embrace their voice, if that makes sense. Like, there was a time where Wanes were battered, like belted, for speaking Scots, and we have come a long way since then. So it is getting better. What I would like to see is Scots being more featured on the mainstream, and not just as a cheap joke where like a Doric speaker standing at the bar and the other Scots speakers like looking at me like, "What are you saying?" That was in a recent BBC show with the guy who played Ramsay Nesbitt, Gregor Fisher. It was a wonderful show, but they had that little cheap gag in it. I thought it was really unnecessary to make us Scots speakers out to be incoherent to each other. It was just a bit pants. It was unnecessary. And I would like the mainstream to be a bit more accepting and stop asking the question, is Scots a language? It is. It's done. We've answered that question. Now let's make content in Scots language for Wanes and for grown-ups that isn't just centred around comedy. We include comedy, but not just comedy.
We're quite lucky in New Cumnock because Scots is still spoken quite widely in New Cumnock. And Billy Kay often said that when he wanted to talk to people in Scots, that's where he went. He very often came to visit us at Newcomer at Burns Club, so that he could get the opportunity to speak Scots, just naturally.
Aye, he's a good Scots speaker, Billy.
So, so the awards were in Cumnock. I didn't know there was such a thing as the Scottish Language Awards, but it was great that we were able to go along, and it was a fantastic night. They put on a great show.
It was a fantastic night. It was a wee bit hard for me to get there, but it was a good night.
I think that's the problem. Cumnock used to be the centre of the universe, but it's since the miners' strike, it's not been central universe any longer. So,
I'll tell you what, though, I was glad actually when looking back, I'm glad that it was held there, because I don't know, it felt just it felt like it felt good to not just focus these awards on in city places, although they're easier to get to. It felt more like a homecoming somehow.
Aye.
Yeah. And I really enjoyed the place.
Anyway, tell us the storytelling. Do you go around to schools to tell stories, or tell your stories, or are you?
I can do. I mean, I've visited schools. I've done outdoor events, festivals, all kinds of things for storytelling. And I'm registered with the Scottish Storytelling Centre. I had created an alter ego to tell stories. Her name is Susi Sweetpea the Fairy, so I'm a part-time fairy. And sometimes you'll find me in the woods, doing an event, and I'll be sitting in the woods, and the families would be brought to me, and I would be telling them stories dressed as Susi Sweetpea the Fairy. And it's a lovely, enchanting experience. And they initially created the character to hide behind because I was really nervous when I first started out. But people kind of loved her, so I just kept her going. So she's I talk about her as if she's the third person. Because when I'm in that costume, when I'm in that place with that persona, I become a little bit more mischievous, but in a nice way. A bit more bolder. And I remember being dressed as Susi Sweetpea the Fairy going up to Edinburgh on the train early one morning. I had a show at 10 a.m. and so I'd got the train from Lockerbie. And by the time I arrived in Edinburgh, I would have no time to get my costume. So I started my journey in my costume. So I'm in business class with these suits, and my friend was with me, and I was bored, and I took my wee pack of bubbles, blown bubbles, out of my pouch, and I blew these bubbles to her, but the wind took them over to the rather frustrated, angry-looking businessman in front of us, who was furiously tapping on his keyboard, and they slowly just descended, bursting on his nice suit and on his fingertips as he's tapping into his computer. And I thought, oh no, I'm going to get in trouble now. My friend's like, but he never even looked up. And I thought, I woke up at 6 a.m. to look like this, and you've not even acknowledged me.
Very good.
But the businessman sitting next to him, he had his hands in his mouth, and he was looking out the window, just trying hard not to laugh. What a good morning that was.
Excellent. So are you doing was it the Edinburgh Festival you were doing when you went up on the train?
No, it was a wee event that I was doing at the Scottish Storytelling Centre that particular day. Yeah, I thought I'll get the really early train and I'll arrive on time. But as I was looking at the logistics, I thought I'm going to have to get dressed and carry my wings on and my puppets in a little bag and run through Waverley Station up to the Royal Mile, up to the Scottish Storytelling Centre, dressed in my gear. It was quite
Tremendous.
fun.
But you've got another alter ego, haven't you? The singer in the rock and roll band, is that not the...
Aye, I didn't do that in Scots. I mean, Wade in the Water doesn't sound quite the same, but I sing with Wave Blues Band, and we're a 5-piece electric blues band. We specialise in the old blues like Howlin' Wolf and Big Mama Thornton, and you know, that kind of thing. Bit of Chuck Berry now and again. And it's good fun. I love it. I just get loudy every time.
I'd say I've only listened to a couple of them from your website, but it sounded tremendous.
Thank you.
So, no, it's excellent. Listen, we've talked quite a lot, and would no doubt come back and talk about other stuff. But you gave at the very start, you gave us a link to Burns, but we're talking about Wilson Ogilvie. So I'm going to pass over to Jim and get him to talk to you about what inspired you to get involved in Burns, other than Wilson Ogilvie.
Wilson, lovely man, lovely man.
Aye.
How did you get started with Burns in the first place?
Well, Wilson. You couldn't know. I mean, he had it rammed down our throats from a very early age. I mean, we were big, you know, when you're wee, you didn't really appreciate it. But as an adult, I do appreciate it a lot more. I do appreciate those seeds that he planted back then, because they have grown into a real sense of love and pride for my cultural identity. So, yeah. And when you live in Dumfries and Galloway, Burns is everywhere. The pub that my band sings in a lot, where the photo of my band was taken, is in a place called the Coach and Horses on the White Sands.
Right.
And Rabbie lived in a building just behind that. So he's just everywhere.
Any favourites of his?
I think a man's a man for all that. And a parcel of rules. I do like the ends.
Aye. Well, some argument about parcel of rules, whether it's his or no, but that's another question.
There's a debate on lots. I mean, Caw the Yows was a favourite of mine, and when I went digging around to find out more information about that, it turns out that he mended it from Tibby Pagan. He took Tibby Pagan's version and mended it. Apparently, so there's a document somewhere saying that he had mended the words. Both versions are beautiful.
Well, my favourite Burns song, as Douglas knows, is the first version of Caw the Yows. I just think that I think the best 4 lines of love poetry ever written are in that song. But
I would totally agree with you there, Jim. It's one of my favourites. It really is.
It really is a wonderful, wonderful poem, but our song. But there's lots of things with Burns about that. I mean, and it's all very well to criticise, but without Burns, there wouldn't have been a Scots musical collection.
Well, absolutely. I mean, the man was very complex, like most humans are. And you know, my love for him is born from that there was a whole collection that was brought together for us to reference from. But you know, his heart essentially was a good one. He was coming from a very loving space, and I admire that in anyone. And you can see that in his poetry and in his song.
Yeah.
And the way he reacted to things like, you know, there's this beautiful poem about one of his illegitimate children, the daughter, not being ashamed.
Aye.
I find incredibly modern and powerful.
That's best. Aye. That's a wonderful poem. About the birth of Bess Peyton, and And then the follow-up as well, about him and the Kirk sitting in the chair getting a laying on for Daddy Alls and how he came to be there.
Mm.
I mean, the
Yeah.
whole thing.
Aye. Aye.
It's about, it's not just about, I mean, you know, young people getting connected. It's actually about life.
Aye.
These sort of things. Do you get involved in any bun suppers?
Weirdly enough, I mean, I was a Scots screever last year, and not one Burns Onion Club asked me to join in. Not one. And I found that very strange. And maybe they thought I was just busy and thought, oh, she'll not come, she's busy. I don't know. But I have been asked to do the Old Girth Village Hall, you know, on the 8th of February with Ronnie and the gang there. So I'll be doing the reply to the Toast of the Lassies. And that'll be the first time I've ever done that. So that's going to be really exciting. I have performed at Burns events, and I have done a Burns supper before, you know, performing. But I think I probably did more Burns suppers when I was at school with Wilson Ogilvie.
I don't remember that. And I'll tell you, a reply in terms of Toast to the Lassies is always fun. I
Aye.
love it. And I was with a lassie who I admire, and we've had her on this podcast. And she was doing her first one ever at Bird Supper I was at last year. And I was sitting next to her, and she says, and she gave me a script. I says, you'll get away with every word of that, sweetheart. I says, it's really, really funny.
I'll be honest with you, I'm a bit nervous. I'm not often sure how
No.
to approach it, but as always, I'll manage it and I'll knock it out of the park. I usually do. I have faith in myself that I'll get it done.
Well, I'll tell you, I don't know how many Burn suppers I've been to in my life, but if there's a lady speaking and reply to the lassies, they usually steal the show.
Okay. No pressure then.
No, seriously, it's just the way it is, because particularly nowadays, because I mean back in the days when I started, it was all men. And now it's much more. I mean, in some places you go. I mean, I don't know how many times I've been to ladies' Burn suppers to speak, but I just prefer the mixed Burn suppers now. I just think it's more fun.
More fun, aye.
It's good stuff.
Aye.
Do you see yourself getting involved with the Burns movement at all, given that, I mean, a mentor was past president?
Aye, well, I've never really given it thought. I never thought the door was really that open for me. But yeah, maybe I'll open the door and say hello.
Well, I mean, Ladies Burns Club in Dumfries is Dumfries #1 Ladies Burns Club. I apologise.
Oh, aye, I know.
Right.
I think it's Jane that runs that, isn't it?
Aye, but they do a schools competition that's out of this world. I'll tell you,
Aye.
it's
Yeah.
great. In fact, Douglas and I
I
are
ken
going
quite
this
a
year.
few of the participants. I've got friends whose wains join in with all that.
Yeah, it's really worthwhile and entertaining, I've got to say. So I mean, how do you see Burns getting involved with some of the writing you're doing?
Well, I did respond to Robert Burns with a commission with the Scottish Poetry Library back in, I think it was 21 or 22, with the Tristan Thorns poets. And we'd done our poems on our own, away from everybody else. Like, we didn't show them to each other, but we were all asked to come together and share them live, and it was all live streamed and things like that. But I couldn't go because I had actually had a COVID test and it was positive. Although I felt well, I wasn't allowed to travel. So they set me up like a TV screen to sit in amongst them. So I looked like a sci-fi trope, you know, like disembodied head speaking. But I'd wrote 3 poems inspired by the things that I had read. And they were difficult subjects because it was hard to explain. I think as a woman, we have this experience when it comes to life and how we've been treated. And when you read things in poems that were written back then, you can see how it relates to now. And we all came to that with the same angle. We all came with the same energy to it. But what we were discussing was not any different to what Alan Bissett had produced on his BBC show that was called Inside the Mind of Robert Burns. It was exactly the same thing, but we were subject to clickbait rage farming from the press, and one of us got death threats,
My goodness.
from it. And I half wonder if maybe that's why the door to being part of the Burns community has been kind of shut on me for a wee bit. Like they've read the clickbait headline and thought, well, she's no for us. And I've half wondered that, but I've not let it bother me because I keep Burns in my heart the way I keep him. You get what I mean? I have a love and respect for the bard that in my own way, and I can still have the feelings I have about what life was like back in those days for women. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's different times now. And whilst we've no went the full 100%, I don't think, to be honest, and I've had this argument with people before and where I sit, but because the most important people in my life basically are women. But
Oh, aye.
the issue then was it was a different society. It was
it was a different society, but you look at it with modern eyes and you go, well, I'm responding to it in this way. But, and I did 3 poems. One was responding to the Yellow, Yellow Yarlin, which would have been I would imagine was a collected piece for the Merry Muses collection. And also Muirland Meg, which was connected to the Coach and Horses pub, which I mentioned earlier. So there was a brothel up the stairs in that pub, and Muirland Meg was connected to that brothel. And when you read the words of Muirland Meg, it's heartbreaking. It's absolutely heartbreaking. So, and that was a collected piece, but I'm not saying it shouldn't be spoken or shared. It should be examined and looked at and carefully discussed about its origin in our social history. And that's basically what I was trying to say. But the clickbait headlines, they would have it. Oh, look at this woman slagging him off. No, it wasn't that at all. And it really hurt me when the press did that. It really broke my heart. I thought, and I think a lot of people that were responding to that headline had never even went and looked at the pieces of work that I'd written. So I responded to Muirland Meg, and I also responded to O Tibby I Hae Seen the Day, which was a 10-verse poem that he wrote when he was 17 years old.
Yeah.
And he was very angry at the time because a woman called Tibby had the audacity to patch him after Kirk. And he'd been winching her and she'd ignored him. So I responded.
Well, Susie, is that you giving us a wee link in to maybe persuade you to give us that poem with your reply? Because I heard that I heard that at this event.
Were you there?
the Believe in Scotland event.
I did. I performed.
And I think our audience would really enjoy that if you don't mind doing it.
Would you like to hear Robert's version and then the response?
That would be perfect.
Perfect.
Okay, all right. So Robert Burns wrote this when he was 17 years old, and we've all done it. We've all been upset at that age and said and done things we maybe wouldn't do now. Or maybe we would, I don't know. Oh Tibby, I hae seen the day. Oh Tibby, I hae seen the day you wouldna been so shy. For lake o' gear you lickly me, but truth I can'tna buy. Yestreen I met you on the moor, you spark na, but goodbye like stour. You geck at me noo because I'm poor, but faint I care I. When coming hame on Sunday last, upon the road as I come past, you snuffed and gaed your head a cast, but truth I can'tna buy. I doubtna, lass, but ye may think, because ye hae the name o' Clink, that ye can please me at a wink, whenever ye like to try. But sorrow tuck him that's sae mean, although his pouch of coin were clean, will follows on his saucy queen, that looks sae proud and high. Although a lad were e'er sae smart, if that he want the yellow dirt, you'll cast your heat another airt and answer him fu dry. But if he hae the name o' gear, you'll fasten to him like a brier, though hardly he for sense o' leer be better than a kye. But Tibby lass, tuck my advice, your daddy's gear mucks ye sae nice. The deal again would spear your price were ye as poor as I. There lives a lass beside yon park, I'd rather hae her in her sark than you wi' 1,000 mark that gars you look sae high. Oh, Tibby, I seen the day you wouldna been sae shy, for lack o' gear you lickly me, but truth I care nae buy.
Well done.
I enjoyed it. When I read that, I was like, oh, Tibby needs a response. Poor Tibby. She's been cast as this woman who's just out for money. And I thought, there's more to this story, Ravi. We ken what you're like. And I think he would like this. I think he would like this. And then he'd try and winch me. Right, okay. This is O Rabbi, I hae seen the day. O Rabbi, I hae seen the day, ye would mock me sigh, wi' words laced wi' promised love, but truth I caretna buy. I saw ye on the moor, I geck at you noo, no cause you're poor. Ye treated me like ane of your whores, and I canna thole the lies. I come hame on Sunday last, by then glamour's spell became uncast. Severing ties o' tender past, and truth o' that care I. I doubtna, man, you mun think you lost your charm for I hae clink. It's no for gowd that I shrink my love for it to die. Oh, poor hurt Rabbie, greeting in the dark. I pity that lass doon at yon park. I want tuck her in her sack, and truth I caretna buy. Blame me, Rabbie, for haeing gear, garnin screeve o' love nae mair. 10 hale verses to say you dinna care. I'll wager that's a lie. Your pride's been dunted, know you're hurt. For me, a lassie chose another airt. A wampla wounded in the dirt, and utter your reasons as to why. It's no the money that mocks me mean. It's the flirting you do on the scene. And so what, if I decide that I'm a queen, and look sae proud and high?
Oh, well done, well done.
Thank God him told him it.
And it's one of these things. I mean, I'm sitting here in Mauchline, and not that far away from Lochleigh or Lochley, which Isabella came from the farm next door was a Little Hill farm.
I think so.
So you can imagine where it is and what the land looked like and such like. So it's, but to be honest, when you did it at the Believe in Scotland event, it's the first time I'd heard it, so I've really enjoyed listening.
Oh, I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Aye.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was fun to write, actually, and it was a real challenge to sort of try and reply to it the way he'd written his,
Uh-huh.
and reference back to what he'd written. And I think creatively, I would love to see that in a wee short film with, two actors about that age,
Uh-huh.
like him saying that and then her responding and
Uh-huh.
just walking away. Just visualize it.
Aye, very good, very good. Yeah, it was interesting what you were saying earlier on about kind of access to Burns for everybody, and one of the things I've found in the last few years is that access to Burns hasn't depended on Burns clubs and things like that. There's more and more stuff online, and I was talking to Jim about a YouTube video the other day from a girl who I don't really know who she was, but she did her own version of an immortal memory, and it was tremendous. And more young people are doing that kind of stuff. We've got online Burns clubs with thousands of members now, so
That's brilliant.
it's developing in a different way. I think there is still a future for good Burns clubs, though. I think the camaraderie and the atmosphere is tremendous. Anyway, that's me ranting, Jim. We want to find out more about Susi.
I think that's a good thing.
I mean, I'm not a fan of social media. Never have been, never will be.
You're just getting old, Jim. That's all it is.
No, it's not. It's what it's doing to our society, Douglas. That's what worries me, especially to young men and boys. It's frightening what's happening to them. But however, I think there's room within some of that for Burns, I've got to say.
Yeah.
Because it's a new way of communication. I mean, you saw the American election, and most of the communication was done by, independents, if you like.
Yeah.
Through social media. I just wonder how. I mean, somebody needs to write good poem about social media and Burns. That would be of interest, I've got to say.
Yeah, and
I was interested in your comment about taking a poem and doing a wee short film about it. I think that's a great idea, because I've never been able to understand why the Burns story or bits of the Burns story have never been told on film in a professional way. I know there's been the odd film, but I just don't understand.
I mean, like, we've got films about other iconic Scottish, historical figures. Why haven't we had a sort of there's not a sort of a small independent one done?
Yeah, I think there was. Yeah.
But like something a bit bigger than that, or even like a Netflix series or something. That'd be quite cool.
Yeah, that would be tremendous. Yeah.
Oh, maybe I should write it.
Yeah.
The thing is, even the inaccurate stuff is worthwhile.
Aye. Well, look at Braveheart.
Look at his own things. The problem with Burns is that, see, I find it easy because everything I want to find out about Burns, he tells me.
Yeah, you're right.
He hides nothing.
It's there.
He hides nothing. It's all there. If you read his letters, if you read his poems and the songs that he's not only written but collected, you know where Burns is. He's no hidden secrets.
It's an open book.
But the problem with that is that I mean, even in Scotland, there's this idea of what Burns is that Burns wasn't. But even that on the telly is better than having nothing. Although is the telly the right medium nowadays? I don't know. I'm getting too old for all this stuff. I can't even work my bloody phone. There you go.
Anyway, Susie, let's get back to you. What are your plans for the future?
Well, I'm hoping to just continue to just do what I'm doing and bang that drum for Scots language and Scots literacy. I'd love to see my books animated. I have beautiful books here. I want to get more books out in Scots. But this one's called Weished. I'd like you to read, like, I'm not going to read it all, but I'll read a bit of it. And funnily enough, it was my singing in a blues band that inspired this story, Weished, because I was learning Hound Dog by Big Mama Thornton. And at the end of the song, I always howl, like, ow, 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 ow. I was asked to write a new story in Scots for Scots House website, and I wrote Weished. So you're going to join in with me?
Yeah, go for it.
Shug the dog loved to sing. A woo, 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 woo.
Oh,
Loved to sing more than anything. A woo, woo, woo.
oh,
He would sing in the clodgy. He would sing on the stairs.
oh.
He would sing to the budgie. He'd sing anywhere. A woo, 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 woo. Now, he'd sing when he was canty, so you have to smile when you do this. He'd sing when he was canty. And he'd sing when he was sad. Have to do a sad face now.
Mm.
And his family loved him even when he was bad. So, yeah, well, this is over. The year next, when the moon was bright and full, Shug sang at his loudest. Ready?
Oh.
He shut his ear and hurried up his head. Ah, Shug, shouted his family, can you know hod your Weished?
Excellent. Well, that's the first for this podcast.
I just love that you were howling along. That was magic.
One of the things we've learned about Zoom, and we use them quite a lot for club meetings. We have since COVID, every so often on a Friday night we have what we call Burns Club Blethers, and we just have a bit of a party night. And we always finish off with a bit of singing, because we've learned that singing on Zoom, community singing on Zoom, is the funniest thing you can imagine.
Oh, it's awful.
And Jim there has tears streaming down his eyes when we're trying to sing
something. Brings you to tears. Seriously, it's so funny.
I've tried it. It's awful. It's just, it's a shambles.
Well, we enjoy the shambles that much. We do it every time.
Could you maybe let us have a copy of one of your songs, and we'll fit it on at the end?
One of my songs?
Yes.
Well, what we can do, Jim, is just put the link to Susie's website, because all of our stuff's on there.
Yeah, link to the website. So the website will link you to lots of different things. I do need to update it because there's other things that have happened that's not on there. But I have a lot of all my social media is up to date. So you'll be able to see where I'm going to be next. So I'll be in Glasgow on the 8th of February to do Bra Bairns at the Mitchell Library, where I'll be featuring my stories Yum and other Scots stories. And it's for wee bairns, sort of 3+ upwards.
Oh wow!
That's always good fun. I love working with weans because they're brutally honest. You know, if you're doing a show and it's for adults, they're always, you know, it could be absolutely rubbish, and an adult would just sit there politely and, you know, wait for it to finish and then go away. But a kid, they'll just tell you, they'll just get up and walk. So you know you're doing a good job when you've got their attention. The other thing I'm doing is I'll be, that same night, I'll be heading back through to Aldgarth from Glasgow to Aldgarth Village Hall for their Burns night. Where I'll be doing a reply to the Toast to the Lasses. Is that right? Have I said that right? So I'll be doing that. And doing some performance as well. And my blues band will be performing. Wade Blues Band are on at the Crichton Central in Dumfries on the 28th of February. Their tickets are selling quite fast. I think there might only be 15 left. So get a shugle on. It should be a good night. There'll be a bar and it's all set up like cabaret. So it'll be good. But I am mostly working on a play called Drukit.
Right.
And Drukit is based on a story from our wee podcast that I had wrote and performed on our wee podcast. I'll talk about that in a bit. And the story on the podcast is called The Three Wee Butterflies, and it's about friendship, acceptance, inclusion, which are all lovely things. And it's for 3 to 5-year-olds as well. It's a wee toddler's play that I'm writing in Scots language, and there's going to be music in it. And Alan McClure, who I do the podcast with, he is writing the music for that. And this is commissioned by Brockland Theatre. And we're going to have the dramaturg. There's a word. We're having the dramaturg week, which is like a pilot episode if it was a telly program. We'll have that development week at the Theatre Royal in Dumfries with actors, and at the end of that week, an invited audience is going to come in and watch it and give us feedback, and hopefully by 2026 we'll have it fully produced and out on tour. So
brilliant. So I mean, your whole life, obviously since you moved to from Dumfries to Gatehouse of Fleet, and even back there at the Theatre Royal, as a Burns links all the way through it.
Oh yeah, he's just there. He's just all around us all the time, and there's a comfort in that. I mean, I go into the Coach and Horses, and see my friends, and I'm underneath his picture. And the poem Muirland Meg is there, and my poem that responds to Muirland Meg is there, sitting side by side, and it just feels, I feel so connected to him, it's like an echo, this really comforting echo. When I first moved back to Dumfries after a period of, let's just say, unrest in my life, I was a single mum with 2 bairns at that point. I've got 4 bairns, but 2 of them had grown up a bit older. So I was on my own with the 2 younger ones. And I would, from where I stayed to get the kids to nursery and school, I had to walk past Jean Armour every day, the statue of Jean Armour, outside St Michael's Kirk on the opposite side of the road. So I'd walk past her every morning, and I took great comfort from Jean. And I'd say, "Good morning, Jeannie, how are you getting on?" in my mind, and we'd have these imaginary conversations where she would ease me up. "You can do it, lass, you got this, And she's standing there as a statue with the bairns beside her. So it's not just Burns, but his missus as well. Like, we must always remember that she existed,
Yeah, of course.
Very much.
And she turned out to be a great woman.
She was a great woman, and I would like to explore, her story a lot more. But she's sort of quietly in the background, isn't she? But I think the point I'm saying is that Burns and Jean are around me whenever I go to Dumfries. Even here in Gatehouse of Fleet, there's a pub in Gatehouse of Fleet where Scots wi' Hay was supposed to have been written. But we're off again in Dumfries and Gallery say, "I was here and he wrote this." It's a bit of an inside joke amongst the Hemel, that.
Oh, Susie, it's been tremendous. We're kind of running out of time, but I wonder if we could persuade you into one of your own poems to finish us off.
Would you like the Root and Brig? You would have seen that, Douglas, at the Scots Language Awards.
Yeah, that'd be brilliant.
Root and Brig. Let's gang for a run. 7 of us pile into the Brune Reynolds estate, wriggling for room. My sister Debbie hods me ticked around my waist in the days afore seatbelt laws. My other sister gurns about my brother's bony air sticking into her legs and gets telled off for swearing. Papa stops at the shop for juice, crisps and sausage rolls. We didn't gan that far, but at 4-year-old it felt like we were gone to the moon. Awa for the clatter of the council estate, awa for noisy neighbours, and that raj wee boy at the park where I piddled on the slides and nobody else could play on it. I keep my een on the road like I've been telt, and try not to breathe and taste the fag-reek. Have I been easy scunnert in a car? Papa says, look for it to the road ahead, Susie. You'll no feel sick if you do that. And stop eating your snotters, you'll get worms. Down the road, past moo coos and sheepy mead, I anticipate each bend toward the wild garlic and the bluebells await. I seek the old kirk o' iron grey, a beacon in the summer sun, its familiar sandstone and white paint, a signal that we're no far now. We stop just before the brig. Oh, arms and legs, I'll burst out the car, dappled green and sunbeam swirls. The wee birds lilt their skinkling songs o'er the roar of the blattering water. And my wee heart loups and thrums, and I get instant fairyland disco fever. I run to the top of the steep path. Down onto my hunkers, I skiddle down to my enchanted fairyland escape. The rocks and ferns conceal secret places where the fae folk hide for mortal men. They dinna hide for me though. They ken I'm alright and they come out to play. I marvel at the white waterfall, cascading bricks, plashing against the arc wet stains. A rainbow portal shimmers and vanishes. I slip off my shin and plant my feet on the dry shingle shore. Grit finds its way atween my toes, then disperses with the first dip. Each slow step in the cold, brown water finds foothold and grooves atween slippy stains. My hands rocks out, ready to touch the muckle rock that juts out for the forest edge into the flow, pure and certain. Paddling pixies and drouthy bumblebees enjoy the shallow water pools in the crevices of this ancient mossy seat. Above the arc frame of the cascading white water, my old papa has ascended to the top of the tree, or so it seemed, and I can still hear him shout, Susie, look up!
Excellent.
And all of that's true. It's all true. That is a vivid memory from a 4-year-old Susie.
Fantastic. Well, Susie, it's been great talking to you. Just like to thank you so much for telling us about your life with Robert Burns.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed it.